the Jewish Roots portion of Faith for today. This is Pastor Don and Donna Long, and we're really excited that you've joined us as we continue to explore the implications of being grafted in to the roots of the Jew. You know, Paul tells us very clearly in the book of Romans in chapter 11 that the church is really grafted into the root of God's people. That as Christians we don't stand alone, but rather our very roots that nourish us and give us life are found in the Jewish people.
Yes.
You know, when you think about it, Donna, it's really amazing because the life is in the root.
Yes, it is.
What you see is the branches, you see the fruit, but if there's no roots, then the fruit is simply something that looks good, but it'll wither, it'll die.
That's right.
And interesting that Paul, who obviously was a rabbi, Rabbi Shaul, that when he came to take the gospel into the Gentile world, that he wanted to make clear that he wasn't starting a new religion.
That's right.
He was not, as some people think, starting Christianity, but rather that this was a logical fulfillment. After all, Yeshua was and is a Jewish Messiah.
Yes, he is.
The whole concept of Messiah makes no sense in the Gentile world. It was a fulfillment of the prophecies of the Old Testament.
That's
and
right.
so when we come to look at our Jewish roots, what we are really doing is exploring the family we've joined.
That's right.
And how much of that family can we become a part of? And are there pieces of that family's history and family's life that we can take on to ourselves?
That's right.
You know, it seems to me that if we read history right, that Constantine, when he came and became supposedly converted, I doubt he was, but who officially recognized the Christian church, that he opened the doors for a flood of Gentile pagan practices to enter the church. And the early church fathers at that point, because they wanted to be accepted by the state, made a clear decision, let's break from our Jewish roots and let's establish new roots, which were really steeped in paganism.
That's right.
But as across the world, Christians are beginning to identify their Jewish roots and partake in that, they're beginning to find a richness in traditions which belong to us as well.
That's right. It's a rediscovery.
and one of them, in addition to Sabbath, that is God's day, and we talked about that, I believe, in an earlier broadcast, is the lighting of the Sabbath candles.
Yes.
That's a tradition that Jewish families do when?
They do it on Friday evening as Shabbat or Sabbath is coming in, because they go from sundown to sundown. And that's when they would light the candles because they're welcoming in the Sabbath.
So when we say Sabbath, the seventh day, which we would call Saturday, but according to the Bible, when does Saturday begin?
It would begin at Friday at sundown.
So as the sun goes down on Friday, that according to God's calendar, Friday is now over.
Over, that's right.
And Saturday really begins when that sun goes
Sabbath is
down.
coming.
And it goes through the night and through the whole next day. And so there is a custom to mark the beginning of Sabbath.
That's right.
And that custom is the lighting of
the Shabbat candles.
Of the Shabbat candles or the Sabbath candles. So,
That's right.
So lighting of candles is a way to usher in.
That's right.
To start something.
That's right.
Okay.
That is correct.
And we understand that now, if you are among the Hasidic Jews, they get really particular about what is the exact time of Sabbath, and normally the Sabbath candles would be lit slightly before sundown.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't be lighting them afterwards.
That's right, because they're not allowed to strike a match.
After it begins.
Shabbat has entered, right.
But for most Jewish people, it is simply, at that time that they would do that. And so the candles really remind us of the spiritual dimensions of Sabbath. I mean, I suppose you could start Sabbath like you start any other day.
That's right.
But Sabbath is meant to be a day set apart.
That's right.
It's
not like all the rest of the days.
That's right. It's different than the rest of the week.
It's a special day. It's not common.
That's right. So for an Orthodox Jewish family or for Christian families who are celebrating Sabbath, what would they do to make that? Why is that night going to be any different than Thursday night, for example?
Well, it would be different because actually, if you stop and think about it, Abba says it's his day. This is my day. I'm setting this day apart, and it's holy as unto me. You know, keep this day holy. So it would be like as if you had all week long you're doing something, and then suddenly you have a special guest coming that day.
Okay.
You would not have your normal way of carrying on. You would have something special to honor that guest coming in. Well, Shabbat is almost like a special guest, a special season, a special time frame, a special dimension almost coming into our life, and it's actually us stepping into something that's already there, I believe. So the lighting of the candles is like almost like that marking that line between your ordinary timing and now I'm stepping into the presence. And what better thing but candles which are lit to illuminate, and Yeshua said he's the light of the world.
Absolutely. And so in most families then, they anticipate the coming of Sabbath.
Oh yes, and they make a lot of to do about it. I mean, they get dressed in their best clothing. They have a special meal that day. They use special linens. They use special plates and all that. And it's really an honoring to the Most High God. Really.
Think about it as a child growing up in that kind of an environment. That every day you gather around the kitchen table or the dining room table or what. You may eat off your melmac, your ordinary everyday plates. You've been playing outdoors. You come in, wash your hands, you sit down and eat supper.
In the same clothes, yes.
The man rushes home from work and sits down, or the woman, and you eat.
That's right.
And in many cases, you might not even eat together as a family.
That's right.
But on Shabbat,
it's different.
It's different. So
Shabbat is
as a
different.
child, you become very aware. That, oh wow, on this day we put out a special tablecloth.
That's right. Even a young child would realize that. They would realize there's something different about this day.
Right.
Something is very different about this day. It's very special. It would almost be like when we think of, holidays, Thanksgiving or something, there's a big to-do in the household about it. Well, this is every week that they have that specialness about a day and the excitement and the anticipation of the blessing in that day.
You may have a special tablecloth. I mean, we have some we bought in Jerusalem that have menorahs in them. Not a requirement, but it's the joy of realizing we're doing everything we can to separate Sabbath from the mundane rest of the week.
That's right.
And you put on a shirt and a tie for the men.
That's right.
You dress as you would dress for a holiday.
As a holiday, that's right.
And every Friday night, then you've got this this excitement about introducing and stepping into.
That's right.
It's almost like this celebration, the Sabbath dinner, the Sabbath lighting of candles, really clears the mind.
Yes, it does.
That
you stepped over a line. It's almost an invisible line that you step over. And once you were here in the ordinary way of life, everyday grind of things, and you step over into just a very restful place, a very rich place.
That's right. Now, a lot of the celebration. It's interesting in the Jewish tradition. A lot of the celebrations of services and worship involve mainly the men.
Yes.
But in the home, the woman is really the life, the energy that drives much of the celebration.
Yes, she is.
There are, in fact, requirements for men to attend services that aren't there for women. The rabbis will say, by the way.
Yes, we know why.
that it's because a woman naturally is spiritual and will be
she would be led towards that and inclined towards that, where the men have to be commanded to do it.
That's right.
And they will obey.
That's right. We know that men can have it in their heart as well.
That's right.
Amen.
They sure do.
So when it comes to who lights the candles, the tradition is...
The tradition is that the woman of the household would do that.
Okay.
And that is almost a thing that's handed down to, it's almost like a rite of passage in some families for the young girl, the one that is next in line, the oldest girl, the teenage girl. It's like a privilege that a young girl growing up would look forward to, which is a very refreshing thing for a young girl to be looking forward to, is like, I'm going to be old enough finally to be able to light the Shabbat candles. And it's a great anticipation for a young girl as she's growing up to be able to do that. And so it is the woman generally that would do that. If there's not a woman in the household, of course the man, that falls to the man
Right.
to light the candles. And you know, but in most homes there is a woman there, and she is the one that would light the candles.
And many times, simply due to schedules in modern life, out of a desire to light the candles before Sabbath begins,
Yes.
they're already lit as Sabbath is introduced,
Yes.
and the husband, the father, might be arriving just as Sabbath is beginning. That the wife and the daughters and the children
That's right.
would be having
They may light it.
and they might have that ceremony
Yeah.
themselves
Right.
that goes about.
I think that but if we were over in Israel, I don't think you would find that at all. Now here in America, you might find that, but
Right.
in Israel, you would not find that the man would be late coming home because Shabbat is announced. The entry of Shabbat is announced way ahead of time, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, or earlier if it's
Right.
an earlier time that the sun sets in that season, and they very well. It's a very well-known thing that, you know, we're not going to be late for Shabbat. We are going to close our businesses. We are going to end our workday way ahead of time, so we have time that we're not rushing into Shabbat. That we are home getting things that we need to get done, and we restfully and peacefully enter into Shabbat and not in a rush type way. But here in America, we might find that.
It was a rare thing when we were in Jerusalem, but you would see every once in a while, you'd see a Hasidic man with a beard, and,
Yes.
and he's got his bouquet of flowers.
Bouquet of flowers.
Because, again, just a custom.
That's
that,
right.
That
And
the man
his challah bread.
the man would be running home with maybe bread, but definitely with his flowers.
Yep.
And you'd see him hurrying. You know, that
right.
he wants to get home before that Sabbath begins.
That's right. And he doesn't want to miss that lighting of the candles, because it's a significant part of that whole process of stepping into Shabbat, I believe.
Now, how many candles?
Well, traditionally it's 2, like we have here, and they generally are white, I believe, but any color will do. We're not legalistic about
Right.
it, but I believe that it's generally 2. Although there was a tradition way back when that is now being reintroduced, that every person in the household had their own candle that they lit personally for themselves. That had fallen away for a while, but as the Lubavitch rabbis and that are now saying that there is so much darkness in the world that we need that extra illumination. So I think that's a very, very significant thing to each person could have it. Now there were the candles themselves that were at the Shabbat meal,
Right.
but every individual in the family had their own Shabbat candle that they it was like a personal entrance, I think, into Shabbat, that they would have probably in their own room or whatever, you know, to light their own candle.
Well, you know, you think about it, it's with the darkness in the world, as the rabbi says.
That's
There's
right.
so much of it that we need more light.
That's right.
That would make a lot of sense.
That's right.
You know, there's traditional blessings that go over that people recite.
Yes.
Certainly, the Jewish people have theirs. Messianic Christians may, in fact, add or adapt their own.
No.
There's nothing biblically commanded there, but there are certain
Right.
oral traditions which
That's right.
the Jewish people would follow. And one of them, do you want to read that? Or
You want me to read it in the Hebrew?
yeah, do it in the Hebrew.
Okay. In Hebrew, they would normally, as they were lighting the candles, they would light the candles, and then the whole family together would be. Do you want to sing it?
Well,
Or shall we
we'll
just
do
say
that
it?
when we do.
Okay. It would be Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitchenu bo mitzvotav vitzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbos Shabbat.
Wow. And so this is the translation of that, by
That
the
is,
way,
yes.
is Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to kindle the light of the holy Shabbat. And so all around the world, as Shabbat comes in, and think of Shabbat moving around the planet as night falls around the planet, that you've got Jews all over the world.
That's right.
And they found, for example, when they went to these tribes they've discovered in India,
That's right.
that were Indians, but
That's
they were
right.
Jewish.
That's right.
And nobody knew about them. But when they,
But they found they were
out
doing
that they were lighting Sabbath candles.
Candles, that's right.
And they were going through the blessing
it's in
over
the
there
blood.
because it was inside them.
It was inside of them instinctively.
And, you know, as we picked up the celebration of trying to delineate the beginning of Sabbath and to mark it as a day aside,
right.
as we began to light Sabbath candles, you know, we are going to say, where do these blessings come from? And they come, a lot of them, out of oral tradition.
That's right.
For the Jewish people teach that not only do we have Torah,
That's right.
but we have the oral tradition. That is not only what Moses taught,
That's
what
right.
was revealed to him that got written down, but they will say that God revealed things to Moses that he taught the elders, the 70 elders in the Old Testament, that he taught them, and these got passed down as
Well, Yeshua
oral
himself
tradition.
knew all of these.
Yes.
Yeshua, many of the things that he taught came out of not just Torah, but they came out of oral tradition.
Right. So, and that's it for another lesson. We want
Yes.
to talk about that sometime, about the oral tradition that Yeshua followed. But as we looked at it, in our family, and everybody
yes.
can do it and in our congregation.
Yes.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments. But the commanding of the kindling of the light in Shabbat, we did not find it. We didn't find it in Torah. It's in oral tradition, and so we chose to do it a little differently.
That's right.
And to start our blessing the same way, but then to just change it a little bit.
We change it, yes.
Amen.
Yes.
So.